We'll bring back Eben Novy-Williams. Up, there's Dr. Laila Mintas. Hello, Laila. We're waiting for Don Cornwell with the best background in the business. Hi, Don. Eben, if your audio works, I'm going to go duck out of here. So let me know. What do we got?
I think I sound good, Scott.
Perfect. Good. Good to see you all. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Hey, Laila. Hey, Don. Thanks for joining us. We've been talking for the past hour or so, kind of from the rights holder standpoint, what this means for leagues, media companies. I'm excited to shift gears to talk more what this means from an operator standpoint. And Laila, I want to start with you. PlayUp was mentioned a little while ago by Adam Davis, the relationship that you guys have with the Devils, which made me think of, it's a tangent, but I'll get to the point. It made me think of Sonic, the fast food company, which does a lot of advertising in places long before they open as a way of building up engagement, building up brand awareness before the company actually opens in locations. Talk us through kind of the partnership you guys have with the Devils, what the plan is in terms of getting awareness in New Jersey before actually launching in New Jersey.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are, I think what was mentioned before, we are the biggest fantasy provider in Australia. We also do sports betting and horse racing very successfully in Australia, being a profitable business. For into the US. And we have now secured market access in various states on the sports betting side. We're looking into horse racing, iGaming as well. We are live in Colorado. We are working on getting live in New Jersey, which is a golden standard. So it's pretty painful for everyone that has to go through, but we're almost there. And we are live in New Jersey with a free-to-play. So we started building our database in the space, and that's why it made sense for us to sign that New Jersey Devils contract and having our logos in the stadium, but having also a lot of digital assets. And as Adam kind of like mentioned, we're very interested in digging into the database of our partners and really use that partnership to acquire customers, because that's why we do that, right, at the end of the day.
And when you think about a company that has a really big international presence in Australia, when you think about the way Australia looks regulation-wise, market-wise, versus the way America looks with a much different model that varies literally depending on what mile of road you are, depending on which state, how do you think about those two things? Is there a model that's better? Is it harder in the US? How do you balance kind of the differences between overseas and US laws?
Yeah, I've been in the industry around for so long in sports betting since 2006. Used to run Sportradar's data business, was involved strategically with BetWorks, which is a betting platform, and now finally with PlayUp and Operator. So I have seen so many facets of the US betting market already, and things that are working well and that are not working very well. And my main reason why I believe in the success of PlayUp is that we own our own tech in-house. I think that's a very big differentiator for the US. As you have seen at Super Bowl, some of the major sportsbooks in the US, they just crashed. They don't own their own technology, or they're not using it yet in the US. So it's kind of like advantage to have that. And you see a lot of Europeans coming into the market. I think our advantage in the US is, or our advantage being Australian, is that we have 80% of our fans that are already betting on US sports. So funny enough, I didn't know that before joining PlayUp, but Australians love US sports. So we are used to do risk and trading for US sports already. So there are no surprises. I'm originally from Germany. So I think I'm allowed to say that Europeans most of the time don't really understand US sports. And our risk and trading platforms in Europe, they're made for soccer, which is the number one sport that people are betting on. So 80 to 90% of the betting volume happens on soccer, and bringing those platforms into the US just isn't easy. It's a big challenge. So I think that's a big advantage of PlayUp, being used to that already. And then the second piece I would say is working in a highly regulated and highly competitive market like Australia has really well prepared us for what we expect to happen in the US. So there's nothing that can kind of like surprise us anymore from a regulatory step.
Don, you've done deals, international deals in gaming, and you've done deals in the US in gaming. How do you think about the differences in the way they're set up and the opportunity therefore for operators?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really important point on a couple different fronts. Number one, I think too often we talk about the U.S. as a monolith. As Laila appropriately stated, there are states like New Jersey that are quite different than other states. If you compare what we think is going to happen in New York versus what's going on in New Jersey versus what we've seen now in Arizona and potentially Texas, they all have different frameworks. And you overlay on top of that, the physical location dynamic in each of those states, right? Some states have a lot of physical casinos, land-based casinos. That's going to differ from a state like New York, where yes, upstate we have those casinos, but in New York City we have none. So the competitive dynamics can be quite different. And I think that's going to allow for 50 different market structures, right? And I think that's why you're seeing so many companies from overseas like PlayUp and others come in and say, look, I don't necessarily need to be top two. I don't need to go and throw money around to buy market share and do all the things that are happening right now, but I can have a very profitable business if I pick my spots, right? And there are certain states where you can sort of see a path towards a nice market share and a nice profitable business. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of. The second thing I'd say is in America, because of the way this is formed, we've seen the leagues get involved much earlier. Right, and they are flexing their muscles in ways in which I don't think many of us really knew. Laila probably knew, given her experience at Sport Radar, but the rest of us civilians really didn't know how. We had a feeling that it might come, but we're actually really seeing it now. Obviously, there's been the NFL deals. I think the market access point that we're seeing in Arizona and in Texas and in Maryland, that's really fascinating, right? Because what I've envisioned is a world 5 years from now where the best data source for teams are the betting companies. The betting companies are going to know their fan base better than anybody else that they work with. And that's going to infiltrate the team, allow them to do better sponsorships, allow them to react to their fan base in a way in which they've never been able to do. And so I think we're at the beginning of a real golden age for sports, led by what's going on with sports betting.
Is that a goal?
You might hear some thunder in the background, so I may have to run inside.
Good.
If it starts raining.
Is that a golden age for sports betting operators in the U.S. from an economic standpoint, more so than any other market? And correct me if I'm wrong. We have stakeholders here that are taking a chunk of the business in some ways, and it's official data and it's deals with teams, et cetera. It's a small margin business as it is, as you both know. Do the economics change when the leagues and the official data companies are this hands-on with it to make it maybe harder to make money in the U.S. than it might be in other countries?
I don't think it's harder to make money than in other countries. I think just what you see at the moment is that most of the bigger operators, they're aggressively fighting, obviously, for market share. They're solely focused on acquiring customer. So our goal in the US is to be profitable one day. So we're not one of those bigger giants that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year in loss. So we are here to make money, and as Don said very nicely, that fits very good to our approach at PlayUp. We are basically cherry picking the markets. We are online only, so we don't do any retail. That saves us a lot of headaches, obviously, now with most of the operator or most of the states having over 90% of online sports betting versus retail. But yeah, I think the secret is really in engaging fans also with a sports betting product. So having an easy app that's easy to use, that's fun, giving the fact that many people in the US are new to sports betting, really being entertaining, being helpful to set that up, having a world-class customer service, for example. Another differentiator for us, for example, is that we take higher stakes. So we are a premium brand. We're focusing on the high-end customer. Of course, we take everyone who wants to place $1-3 bets as well, but our goal is to get more the higher-end customers. And from my previous experience, I have seen that that's really a gap in the US market. I was involved in conversation where bigger operators said, hey, we don't want to take those big bets. And now we are here. So come to us and place your bets PlayUp, right? So I think that's a gap that's only possible because we have our own risk and trading, and we're used to do that with US sports already for many years. So there are many learnings that we can basically apply to the US. But yeah, sports betting is a low margin business. But that's why we have to be smart about how we spend our money. So that's why we decided to go with the New Jersey Devils, which is the only professional sports team in New Jersey. So we're focusing on spending locally instead of nationwide, because if you spend nationwide, but you have only 13 markets that allow online sports betting at the moment, there's a lot of waste. So that's why our strategy is retention and higher stakes and basically focusing on local spend rather than nationwide.
Don, when you think about, go ahead.
I was just going to add to that. The other dynamic is obviously iGaming and casino, and sports betting can be a feeder customer acquisition tool for iGaming, which almost by definition is a higher margin business. And I think part of what's going on is the leagues know that, and they have no way of capturing a piece of that iGaming revenue. So they're okay leaving the sports betting business as low margin. And so it's going to be on the operators, people like Laila, to figure out, okay, I've got these customers. How do I monetize them in different ways? And maybe it's iGaming, maybe it's daily fantasy. I mean, it could be a lot of different ways in which we see it. And I think that's also why you're seeing people thinking about content and media, right? Because as it was mentioned in a previous panel, these betting companies may have to become media companies.
Yeah, it's a great point. iGaming is a very great differentiator because you have always content on, right? So even if no live sports takes place, you have content on your app. Same with horse racing is another great differentiator to have, where you can basically cross-sell customers. So the same people that like to bet on horses, like to bet on sports or do casino games on your app. And one of the things that we did from a tech perspective is that we decided to go in with one app. So we will have one app available where you are able to do horse racing, sports betting, and iGaming. And we have a so-called traveling wallet that you have to download the app only one time. And then the app recognizes, obviously, if you're in another state, you have to push a button to basically agree to the different regulations in that state, but you're able to use the same wallet and the same app. So there's no point of a customer to download many apps, and it's annoying to set up all the accounts, the bank information every time again. So it's much more convenient.
So when you look in your crystal ball, Laila, the way things are going right now in the US, in 10 years, is PlayUp making more money on sports betting, or is it making more money on iGaming?
Probably iGaming, right? I mean, the iGaming market is just bigger. It's hit almost $1 billion last year in New Jersey already. And then the margins are higher. It's 24/7 coverage on the app. And I think that's why you see the trend of many operators now looking into iGaming as well. What does that mean for sports is the other question, right? As you mentioned before, so the sports leagues, they're probably not able to monetize immediately from the iGaming trend. So they must think about different ways if they want to participate in those potential revenues.
One way some of these companies can benefit from this is through acquisition. Don, when you look at the M&A right now across gaming, sports betting, iGaming, what do you think? Is it heating up? Is it going cold? What does your crystal ball say?
Oh no, it's super hot, to me, the only thing that's slowing down M&A is the volatility and valuations. You've got a very mature market in the rest of the world where companies like Entain and Flutter and 888 trade on fundamentals. What we've got in the United States is people trading on the potential of a market. Yeah, it's a potential of a market. And so the question that faces people who are looking to engage with the U.S. companies is, are they willing to take a bet that those companies will fulfill their destiny as being a leading sports betting company? And that's where time will tell. It reminds me a little bit of the days of the .coms. I guess I'm old enough to remember this, when you had these really high-flying companies with great currencies going around trying to buy cash flow. And I think at some point you may start to see some of that. And so there could be some interesting discussions. The other thing I'd say is, because sports betting touches on so many secular trends that are popular amongst, the masses and really the young people, entertainment companies broadly are watching the space, right? And if you look up at some period of time, and whether it's a DraftKings or a PlayUp or PointsBet or whomever is profitable, they've got a big fan base, a customer base, you could see other entertainment companies making the decision, you know what, now's the time to go. Right now, I'm going to enter. So now you'll start to see acquisition. It's kind of like years ago, there was a lot of discussion around media companies buying video game companies. We saw some of that. And I could see that happening again here. I'm not saying next year, 2 years, maybe not even 5 years from now, but 10 years from now, I do start to think that you'll start to see some colliding of those two worlds.
Evan, how about that missed opportunity from Mr. Cornwell for a viral sensation had he just stayed outside for the deluge and continued to fight through to do the event? But PJT doesn't allow for reimbursement for wet T-shirts?
It's wet computers and lightning. Even football stops in lightning. I had to stop, man. I didn't want to get electrocuted. That would have been very viral. If I got electrocuted live on Sportico, that would have been pretty bad.
It's not worth the eyeballs for me, Don. I want you to be okay. Good. Evan, go ahead. One more for Laila before we bring in the rest of the panel.
Yeah, I actually I wanted to talk about SPACs, and I guess I want to hear from both of you, because Laila, I would imagine that you guys may be even having conversations with different companies. The SPAC world met a little bit of a cool down in the past week or so. It's unclear to me really if that affects just the ones that are coming or the ones that have already gone public. But do you think the SPAC craze ends up affecting this industry significantly or not as much?
I think the SPAC market continues to be very interesting for all the operators, and I'm not commenting on that from PlayUp's perspective, but I think overall everybody is looking at that space at the moment. Given the success of DraftKings, who really started that trend, and in the middle of the pandemic, right? So everybody's looking at that.
Yeah, I mean, look, the SPAC market has cooled off, but cooled off from white hot. So it's still hot. There's still a lot of activity. I mean, I can tell you, when I look at my calendar any given week, it's more than half filled with SPAC-related activities, right? So there's a lot going on, and there's a lot more. And I think this space is one of them that will continue to see lots of interest. It may not be U.S. oriented, but globally, I think you're going to see a lot of things coming.